All right, welcome to the show. This is The Sweat, the best spot to be for fantasy and betting coverage in the sports world. I am Brendan Glasheen, got you for the next 60 minutes. We'd like to start by thanking all of our veterans on this Veterans Day and Remembrance Day north of the border. Thank you for your service, sacrifice, and defending our freedom. Secondarily, there is a football game to be played this evening in Santa Clara. It's a battle between the NFC West's best 7-2 Seahawks and the 8-0 Niners. Say hello to DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler. They're here for NFL Chase or Fade. They'll agree or disagree with these statements regarding betting options on tonight's Monday Night Football matchup. Guys, the game's point total is set at 47. Again, it's a key divisional game, so it could be tight. Chase or Fade, we will see the under hit tonight. Reed.
I'm going to fade this. I think this goes over. And when you have a strong defense, clearly in San Francisco, not so strong in Seattle. If you just look at Seattle, too, in the defense, and Brendo, you and I were talking about this before we just came on live, is that the defense, especially in Seattle, is not that good, right? In the second half especially. They gave up a ton of points in the second half. I do like San Francisco to get out early. They averaged the seventh most points in the first half over their last 3 games. In Seattle, again, that defense isn't strong. You like Seattle in terms of how many touchdowns they're able to score. We know Russell Wilson's efficiency. That's going to be put to the test, and that's why he's in the MVP conversation, is that he's going up against a really strong defense, and he should be able to get those touchdowns. So I do like this a slight over. If you look at the last 2, they have gone over with the over-under right around this number.
Jeff, it's set at 47. Again, this is just the first matchup of the season now between Seattle and San Fran.
Well, you know, Brando, I mean, the over is always tempting for me. I'm someone who always seems to lean towards the over. But in this case, I'm going to lean towards the under. I'm going to chase that this goes under. Look, I know San Francisco's kind of been a little bit leakier than normal over the last couple games. Obviously, a lot of that big play to Kyler Murray. But they're also, the over is only 1-2 hitting when San Francisco's a home favorite so far this year. I think this is a pretty big bounce-back spot. Relatively speaking, their defense is pretty healthy here. And even with Russell Wilson, I feel like the Seahawks are going to have trouble scoring more than 20, 23 points. And the Seahawks defense hasn't been bad either. It's not like they're going up against, you know, this monster passing offense. So I think you're going to see more like a 23-20 game, and I'm going to lean towards the under here.
Emmanuel Sanders has looked like a good fit for San Francisco. The veteran receiver is plus 120 to score a touchdown in his 3rd game as a Niner. Chase or fade, Jeff, that he finds the end zone against Seattle's D?
I really like Emmanuel Sanders tonight. I like the spot. I mean, probably the weakest part of the Seattle defense is their secondary, and he's got a nice matchup, especially if he's probably going to be playing out of the slot a lot tonight. We'll see what Seattle does. I doubt they're going to move any of their top corners over to him when he does move there. But Emmanuel Sanders has gelled with Jimmy Garoppolo like right away, which is what you like to see. I mean, I think San Francisco coming into the season was kind of like that was their one shortcoming. They didn't really have an elite wide receiver, an elite slot receiver, and now they do. Plus 120, it's a little bit shorter than I like to take with the wide receiver in most spots, but I kind of like the spot. I do feel like Emmanuel Sanders is in a big spot tonight, so I guess I'm going to take the touchdown here for plus 120.
Reed, how do you feel about Manny Sanders tonight?
Well, first I want to notice that whiteboard, what a barn burner that was, 81-69 with Lazio. Jeez, I mean, any team could have beat you guys this week. Anyway, going back to this question.
I still got Russell Wilson to go there, Reed.
Okay, that's true. Okay, I'll give you that. But still, that's a bad score. Looks like my score. Anyway, going back to this, Manny Sanders, I'm going to fade it. When you look at Manny Sanders and across the board, to Jeff's last point there, that number isn't exactly enticing. Look at a guy like Dante Pettis at plus 300. No Kittle. I mean, he's doubtful, and I'm sure if you look at the roster moves that they've made leading up into this game, that's going to lead us to believe that Kittle is not going to play in this game. But Dante Pettis, who runs the majority of his routes out of the slot, we've seen him get more targets and run more routes as of recent. He gets Shaq Griffin in that position, who's not necessarily a bad corner. All of these guys, in terms of who they play, Trey Flowers, Shaq Griffin, they give up about the same passer rating, around that 90 to 95 passer rating when they're being targeted. But that number at plus 300 for a guy who's probably going to be running more routes than usual, especially with Kittle out, is a much more enticing number than a guy like Manny Sanders at plus 110, plus 120, who's still a good play tonight. But give me the better odds with a guy who should be out there just as much.
Jeff, I hope you didn't use permanent marker on that whiteboard this week, because that will certainly change very soon. But we'll talk about our fantasy leagues at another time. The top wideout on the other side is Tyler Lockett, who has been Russell Wilson's favorite target all season long. Lockett is projected total in receiving yards above 80.5. He's easily passed that in each of the last 2 games. So chase or fade, we'll go to Reed here, that he goes over that total. Keep in mind, Josh Gordon is now in the mix.
Yeah, I don't think Josh Gordon eats too much into Tyler Lockett's production, his target share. That's going to be more DK Metcalf, more guys like Moore, and some of the tertiary receivers there in Seattle. He's still got to learn the playbook, and he still has to get up to speed. But I'm going to fade this. If you look at Tyler Lockett, who he's going up against, K'Wan Williams has been a great corner. He's only given up 164 total yards across 8 weeks to the opposing receivers. And again, that's really good. That's about, 20 yards a game. And this is. I know it's Tyler Lockett, and he's got 100 yards in his back pocket over the last 2 games, or over 100 yards over his last 2 games. But just this team and just the secondary with Seattle, because of that defensive line, can get to the quarterback. And while Russell Wilson can evade and hasn't been sacked as much as we've seen in past, I still think that you spread that ball around. You start using that run game with Chris Carson a lot more. Tyler Lockett's average for the season is right around this number at 85, so it's going to be close, so I'm going to say under.
Yeah, Seahawks last 2, they've played against the Bucks, and they also played against Atlanta.
Boo.
Jeff, Reed says under. What do you say?
Yeah, this is a big number for Tyler Lockett in this spot. It just feels big. I mean, 80 yards. If it was down in 65, 70, I'd probably lean towards the over here. I mean, Tyler Lockett could catch 6 or 7 passes realistically and still not hit this. I mean, San Francisco, a few slot receivers even have gone over this. I mean, Tyler Boyd took him 10 catches, but that was kind of in a mode where the Bengals got behind. They had to throw a lot. Juju Smith-Schuster had one big play and got to 81 yards against San Francisco. So a couple guys have done it, but not many. Tyler Lockett's definitely in the elite category of people who could overcome this matchup, but I don't really want to bet on it. I think this prop is a little bit too big for the matchup, so I'll lean under.
Let's go to the running backs for the Hawks. Chris Carson is the main guy, averaging 85 yards per game. His projected total for tonight is 78.5. San Fran's D is allowing just over 100 yards a game on the ground. So, Jeff, chase or fade that Carson hits the over in the rushing yard department?
This is one I don't really know what to do with. I kind of like Chris Carson for Showdown tonight. I'm someone who has generally been like fade Chris Carson, but I've just stopped because there's no use in fighting the sentiment here. There's no Rashad Penny coming to take his job. That's not happening. Chris Carson is the man here. You're going to see him get touches one way or the other, and whether it's through the air or the ground. That's the one thing that concerns me. If I was betting a Chris Carson prop, I would look for the rushing and receiving yards, because I do feel like San Francisco could be in a bit of a bounce-back spot just defensively. I know they've allowed a couple 100-yard rushers in a row, but it could be a spot where Chris Carson ends up with like 40 receiving yards and like 60 rushing yards. So I don't love the rushing prop. I would probably, like I said, lean towards the under here, but I still like Chris Carson. So it's a bit of a, I know I'm kind of hedging here, but yeah, I guess I'll go under on the rush yards.
You made some sense there, Jeff. How about you, Reed? 78.5 rushing yards for Chris Carson. Over or under?
I like it. I like it. And Jeff kind of hit it a little bit in terms of what his explanation is. But look, I mean, over the last his last 5 or 6 games where he's had over 20 attempts, which I think is what you're going to need in this game against San Francisco, is handing the ball off to Chris Carson 20 plus times. He's hit over this number all but one time. And when you just look at the volume and what he's been able to do, yes, the San Francisco team is strong, but they just lost Quan Alexander's more of a coverage linebacker, but still a leader in that defense. They lost him last week to, I think, a torn pec. But look, this defense is going to break at some point if you keep on running the ball. So again, if I'm projecting Carson to get 20 to 25 touches in this game, which I think is easily possible, I think he goes over this mark.
Hey, for those of you that are watching on Facebook, we do have a poll that is running right now on who will win tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Seahawks and the 49ers. That poll is running right now. The Niners are in front. So a lot of you folks, 63% of you, think the Niners are going to stay undefeated through Week 10. So feel free to weigh in, give your opinion on tonight's game. And I would think, boys, that whoever plays better at quarterback is going to dictate who wins this football game. Russell Wilson against Jimmy Garoppolo. Russell Wilson is minus 130 to end up with the most passing yards tonight, while Garoppolo is plus 105 to be the night's top passer. Wilson has 700 yards more on the season, but chase or fade, it's Jimmy G who comes out with the most passing yards tonight at Levi Stadium. Reed?
That was an exciting delivery, Glash. I really like that. No, it should be Wilson, right? It should be Wilson in this game, and that's why you're getting plus money with Jimmy G. And a big reason why, I mean, if Kittle was in the game, if Kittle was playing, I would say yes, he's an amazing after the catch guy. He's amazing at getting those yards. If he was in, I would be more inclined to take this. But if you just look at how Seattle potentially will have to come back towards the end, really, I really like Carson. But like we mentioned, like Jeff mentioned earlier, you like Carson also in the receiving game. Seattle, in my opinion, I'm with the crowd sentiment here with the public, and I think that the 49ers are going to win. Are going to be leading in this game. You're going to have to pass the ball. If you like Wilson in this game and you want plus money, take his over at 255.5 more so than against Jimmy G. This team runs, San Francisco, it runs the ball 10% more than the second place team in terms of rush attempts per game. They're just running it a ton. So I don't like this head to head, but if you want Russell at plus money, I would take that better.
Jeff, don't let your season-long bias kick in. But
No,
it can
I
if you
won't.
want.
I mean, look, I actually like Jimmy G in this spot. I think getting plus money. This is very similar to the last game that San Francisco had against Arizona. We tackled this exact same question versus Kyler Murray, and Garoppolo outthrew him by like 60 yards. San Francisco has allowed the fewest passing yards in the league so far. I mean, Seattle's up to 9th most. Like, these are two very different defenses in terms of what they do. So, I mean, I know it's Russell Wilson, and I'm not saying Russell Wilson and the Seahawks can't win this game, but I could see Wilson doing it by throwing for 200 yards and Chris Carson and a little bit of defense. I think Garoppolo's in a spot with Emmanuel Sanders, even with Kittle out, where he can rack up close to 300 yards again. So with plus money, I don't mind taking Garoppolo over Wilson.
Yeah, and this is passing yards, right? So Russell Wilson fully capable on the ground. Jeff did a great job teasing it like a host would do. We'll have DraftKings Showdown picks for Seahawks-Niners later on in the program. 6-game NBA slate to break down on this Monday. The Showtime sports documentary film Pariah, The Lives and Deaths of Sonny Liston is coming up. Chronicles the tragic life and suspicious death of perhaps the most vilified and misunderstood boxer of all time. That will be Sonny Liston. Tune in Friday, November 15th, 9 p.m. Eastern on Showtime. We're going to have a sneak peek at it right now.
If you're heavyweight champion, you die trying.
He was always involved in a criminal culture, whether by choice or necessity.
There were a lot of people who had an vested interest in shutting Sonny up. So many people wanted Sonny dead. The question is, who got to him first?
Holy cow, we are beyond the midway point of the NFL season. I am Brendan Glasheen, and this is Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan, who joins us. It's a segment we do every Monday during the football season with Levy. We recap who we missed on when it comes to his plays from the NFL Sunday main slate. Titans rookie wideout A.J. Brown was MIA pretty much the entire game against the Chiefs. It was a wild one. 2019 second rounder caught one ball, and it was in the fourth quarter. Tons of fireworks, Levy, in this game, so you would have thought Brown was a factor. Ryan Tannehill just wasn't looking his way.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the risk that you run with the Titans. I mean, they're so committed to trying to run the ball and play conservatively. They only ran 50 plays in the entire game, and Ryan Tannehill only threw it 19 times. So anytime that happens, you're going to run into problems. I'd note that A.J. Brown did get a role change. He played almost every single snap, set career highs in a lot of those categories like routes run. However, with the Titans, there's always going to be a low floor, as we've seen with Corey Davis and now as we see with A.J. Brown.
Jalen Samuels averaged just 2 yards per carry and caught only 3 of 7 targets for 11 yards against the Rams. Pittsburgh just couldn't run the ball, Levy, and while you did miss on this one, you must have been pretty pleased to see Mason Rudolph and James Washington finally connect outside of the locker room.
Yeah, you know, if you would have told me that Tony Brooks-James was going to play and that the Steelers were going to really use 3 running backs during this game, I would have said there's no way that I could pay for Jalen Samuels $6,300 in a tough matchup against the Rams. I thought that Jalen Samuels' role would actually grow off last week not get worse. So yeah, that was really, really disappointing because we had a ton of good running back options in this week. So to pay $6,300 for one that split the work 3 ways in a tough matchup was really bad.
One more, Jamison Crowder was the Jets receiver you should have been on. Again, not Robbie Anderson, who reeled in just a single grab on 3 targets. You missed on Robbie last week, too. I hope you learned your lesson. The ever-so-positive Sam Darnold, who thinks the Jets can still make the playoffs. He loves himself some Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, and I think just the way that the Jets are playing right now with their offensive line doesn't suit Robbie Anderson well. I mean, what he does best is go deep down the field and make big plays 20, 30 yards down the field. And that's just not in the offense right now because the offensive line can't protect Sam Darnold for long enough. So you see these quick hitters to Demaryius Thomas, to Jamison Crowder, and really it's not made for Robbie Anderson. So, yeah, I think probably just a mistake there, not understanding how the Jets are playing.
That's who Adam Levitan missed on in Week 10. You can find his coverage, of course, on DK Live, the DK Playbook, and on Twitter at Adam Levitan. We'll catch you next Monday, Levy, to see who you missed on in Week 11.
All right, sounds good.
It's that time for your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Taralyn Azak. Another tough, humiliating, will the New York Giants ever get it together loss on Sunday. This makes it their 6th straight loss, and you could visibly see Saquon Barkley's frustration. According to coach Pat Shurmur, Barkley was banged up in Sunday's game. The 22-year-old hasn't been the same since Week 3 when he suffered an ankle injury. Barkley has admitted to not being 100% with that ankle. The second-year running back had a career low, 1 rushing yard on 13 carries in the running game, and Saquon in particular looked inept. That translates to just 8.1 fantasy points on an $8,800 DraftKings salary. Not good. This coming off a game against Dallas where he rushed for just 28 yards. Barkley told the media, "We just have to get better. The Jets played a heck of a game. We get to go on a bye week, get to reflect on myself, and move on." Hopefully this week will give the Pro Bowl running back a chance to rest, heal, and get back to being a beast on the field like last season.
All right, let's talk some hoops. 6-game slate in the association. Let's welcome in the panel Ryan Magjash, host of the Four Seasons podcast for Ball is Life, is here, as well as RotoWire's Nick Whalen and Ben Heisler, fantasy insider for 610 Sports Radio in Kansas City. Guys, NBA pick and roll, it goes a little something like this. We give you 2 DFS options. You pick one and then roll off the other. The 2 options at center, for example, turn out to be featured in the same game. Karl Anthony Towns is $10,000, and then you have Andre Drummond, who's tipping off against him. He is $9,800. Wolves are in Detroit visiting the Pistons. Who do you favor in that matchup? Ryan, we'll start with you.
This one was close for me, but I am leaning on Cat because Blake Griffin is going to try to play some minutes tonight. So it makes me think that they're going to switch their emphasis from pounding it into Drummond, allowing him to get every board on the face of the earth, and then slowly start to get their guy back in the mix. So because of that, I'm going Cat.
Nick, how about yourself? Cat or Drummond?
I think there's a great chance that both guys have really good games tonight. I don't think that would surprise many people. There's a reason they're priced up around 10K, but I'm going to go Drummond. He's the guy, when you look at the kind of head-to-head stats over these last couple of years, he's averaged 23.5 points, 15.5 rebounds against Minnesota in 2 games last season, 17.5 points, again 15.5 rebounds in 2 games against the Timberwolves 2 seasons ago. And then when you turn that on its head and look at Cat, I mean, he's averaging 19.6 points, 8.8 rebounds in 8 career games against Drummond and Detroit. I mean, for most players, those are great numbers, but by Cat standards, a little bit below par from what you'd expect. That's his 4th lowest scoring average against any opponent in the NBA. And Detroit is one of only 3 teams that's been able to hold Cat under 10 rebounds per game for his career. The other 2 are Cleveland and Philadelphia. The common pattern here, big, burly centers. Think Tristan Thompson, think Joel Embiid, and, of course, Andre Drummond. So as great as Cat is, he has kind of struggled against those bigger-bodied guys, and that causes me to lean Drummond tonight.
Ben, what do you say?
I think I'm going to break the tie here and go with Andre Drummond on the slight discount, even though I have a little bit of hesitations about both those guys. I don't know if I necessarily want to pay up at center tonight, but the thing with Drummond is that he's going to give you beastly numbers each and every game. I understand that Blake Griffin still is set to return. I just don't think that impacts what you're going to see that much on the glass with Andre Drummond. He's leading all NBA players in rebounds per game at 18. That's by far tops. I also saw the Timothy Finnegan over at DK Playbook. He pointed out that Andre Drummond is rebounding 29% of his team's missed shots. That's up from 25% over the previous year. And the thing about Andre Drummond, too, is we talked about consistency. You love that from the center spot. He hasn't been under 44.5 DK points since the third game of the season, and that was against Philadelphia, who's one of the best interior defensive teams in the NBA. So with Drummond, he's likely to get you around that 50-point mark, but I think he could be in the 70s still, even with Blake Griffin. And he's at home, so I'll take him with a slight discount over Cat.
Let's go to forward. Kawhi Leonard, I think, is not on the load management bandwagon this evening. He's just having fun, 9,400. Hey, for a little cheaper, we have not one, but two guys who have both put up at least 40-plus DraftKings fantasy points in the last three games. Brandon Ingram, 7,800 against the Rockets. He's been outstanding for a player that had so many question marks in the offseason. Then you have Andrew Wiggins at 7,700 at Detroit. Do you like either Ingram or Wiggins as a pivot off of Kawhi? We'll go to Nick first.
I do. I think I'll roll with Ingram tonight at 7,800. I mean, it's kind of crazy. His price is actually down a bit from where it was a few nights ago, but up, over $2,000 from where he was on opening night. So it really speaks to kind of where he's come in terms of his narrative from now compared to 3 weeks ago. But, even as the Pelicans have struggled record-wise in the early going, they've been among the biggest disappointments in the league, especially on the defensive end. I mean, he's right in the thick of it for most improved player. If the voting for that award took place today, I think he'd be, maybe the number one guy, certainly in the top three. You talk about that consistency with Andre Drummond. Brandon Ingram has at least 40 DraftKings points in all but two games thus far. He's got scoring totals of 40, 27, 25 in his last three games. He's getting some steals. And the biggest thing for him, guys, is he's hitting a ton of threes this year. That's really what's unlocked everything for him on the offensive end, and he's getting a ton of those attempts up. I think that's going to continue. You can kind of look toward the future. Maybe when Zion Williamson returns, that kind of throws a wrench into things for Ingram. But until that happens, and it's certainly not going to be tonight, I'm comfortable rolling with Ingram until he shows that he's starting to look a little bit more like the player we saw in LA. And, if you're a Pelicans fan, I think you want to ride this as long as you can.
Ben, just a $100 difference. Where are you leaning?
Yeah, no offense to Andrew Wiggins in this scenario, but I mean, this is the equivalent of asking, hey, would you like a steak from Morton's the Steakhouse or maybe a steak from Tchotchke's from Office Space for the same exact price? To me, it's, of course, Brandon Ingram in this matchup, especially with no Lonzo Ball, where his usage rate is going to climb above 30%. He's already averaging about 44 DraftKings on a per-game basis. He dropped 63 DraftKings points on the Rockets the last time these two teams played. And listen, I know that I sort of threw Andrew Wiggins under the bus a little bit, but he has been better. His price point has exceeded from, I think, about 6,300 in the last 6 games to now 7,700. So if you want to throw him in a GPP lineup, I understand it if you're looking for a little bit of leverage there. But to me, Brandon Ingram is an absolute must-play, and Andrew Wiggins, probably more of a meh play to me.
Yeah, 7,700 for Wiggins. That is a season high in this small sample size of the regular season. Ryan, let's go to you now. I believe you said last question you're a fan of Karl Anthony Towns, so does that make you more of a Wiggins fan tonight, or no, all the workload's going to Cat?
Absolutely not. No. I'm Ingram here versus Houston. Fastest team in the league versus the second fastest team in the league tonight. I love all of that as far as formula-wise for daily fantasy. Ingram's figured something out this year. 26, 7, and 4 on the year. 26 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. And like our guy said, once Zion comes back, we'll have to figure that out. But for now, Ingram's balling, so I'm all in on Ingram tonight versus Houston.
Priciest options at guard are over $10,000. James Harden and Luka Doncic. But if you don't want to pay up that much, Kemba Walker is available, 8,900 with the Celtics hosting the Mavs, and then D'Angelo Russell with the banged-up Warriors. He's 8,300. Warriors are home hosting the Jazz. Who would you choose out of that duo? Ben, we'll start with you.
I think both of them are really intriguing GPP plays for tonight, and especially with everybody looking to roster James Harden and Russell Westbrook and Drew Holiday. But I think I'm leaning towards D'Angelo Russell to get that $600 savings. He's averaging about 1.2 fantasy points on DK per minute compared to Kemba at just 1.19. His usage rate is about 4 percentage points higher than that of Kemba Walker's at just over 33%. You still have Draymond Green coming back, and yes, unfortunately, there's a little bit of a negative correlation play there when both of them are on the court together. But
D'Angelo Russell has just been absolutely sensational. His minutes have been up the last 3 games as well compared to Kemba. So I will go with the discount here with D'Angelo Russell, especially with how well he's been playing over in the 3-point game.
Ryan, Russell, or Kemba Walker?
I'm going to go Kemba here because D'Angelo Russell, is kind of the opposite of Dew. He just went off for, I think, 62, was it, the other night? 54, 62.
48.3 DK points.
You what?
48.3 DK points last time out.
Okay, yeah. And they play Utah tonight, which is the #1 ranked defensive rating in the entire league, and they play slow. I think they're 28th in pace right now. I don't exactly love that for D'Lo. And just by default, I'm not super excited about Kemba tonight either, but between the two, I'm picking Kemba.
Yeah, and I think the game you're thinking is at Minnesota for D'Angelo Russell. Went for 83 DraftKings points. That was November 8th, last Friday. Nick, let's go to you now. How do you feel about this? You go D'Lo or Kemba?
This is a really tough one. I think Ryan said it right. I mean, what really kind of complicates things for Russell is the matchup. He's playing so well these last 3 games, all up over 30 points, and of course that huge one over the weekend. But I think even with that difficult matchup against Utah, I do lean Russell here. A little bit of a rough start to his Warriors tenure, obviously with the way he's played, over his first few games and with the injuries. But if there's a guy who's ready to embrace just being the face of an organization as a great stats, bad team guy, I think it's D'Angelo Russell. I know the Warriors get Draymond Green back tonight. That should help. But this is probably a game they still lose. It's probably going to go this way for the better part of the next few months while Stephen Curry is out. And, bringing Draymond Green back certainly helps on the defensive end. He's a steadying presence even on offense, but not a guy who's really going to slice into D'Angelo Russell's usage rate all that much. I mean, D'Angelo Russell over the last 2 games alone has 82 total points, 56 shot attempts, 25 of those coming from beyond the arc. Again, even with Draymond back, I don't think we see, much of a slice in usage for D'Angelo Russell. So, the slow pace, the great defense of the Utah Jazz is a concern, but I think I still got to lean Russell until he has one of those bad games that Ryan kind of referenced.
All right, just a big picture question now for you guys. Where can we find value on tonight's 6-game slate? We'll start with Ryan.
I was looking at this hard. I kind of like Jaylen Brown, 6.3K. No Gordon Hayward versus Dallas, which is a really big game. I think I heard Scal over the intercom say that this has been marked on the calendar for a while now. So both teams are going to show up, play well. And then Jalen's first game without Gordon Hayward, I think I wrote down 45.75 DraftKings points last game. He's playing really well and slides in there comfortably at the 3 spot / 2 spot, whatever wing he wants to play.
Yeah, and by the way, Gordon Hayward is set to have surgery for the Boston Celtics. He will be out for the foreseeable future, about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Nick, how about you? Value on this 6-game slate?
Yeah, I'll throw out a few names. I like Alec Burks going back to that Warriors game. I mean, he faces the same issues as D'Angelo Russell in terms of the matchup, but I think the minutes he's playing, the amount of shots he's getting at 5,200 is a pretty solid deal. I think, you have to look, talking about the Gordon Hayward situation with him officially out, for tonight and beyond, guys like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, I think pick up more minutes. And then when you're talking true bargain plays, Semi Ojeleye, Grant Williams are 2 guys to keep an eye on. I think of those 2, Williams is the one I would lean toward, at least in the short term. And then kind of a similar situation in Toronto. You have Serge Ibaka out. You have Kyle Lowry out. I think Chris Boucher, who's at 3,400. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who finally found his way into the mix last night against the Lakers. He's at 3,000. And then Norm Powell, who's still pretty reasonably priced at 4,200. Those are all guys to consider tonight.
It's Toronto on a back-to-back. Some guys, to reference your point, Nick, are excited to get in that rotation. Ben, how about yourself, value for tonight's slate?
Yeah, also to Nick's point, Alec Burks has a bit of a revenge game coming for tonight if you want to throw in and take a stroll down narrative street as well. I love Chris Boucher tonight, as he pointed out, only 3,400. With Serge Ibaka out indefinitely with that sprained right ankle, he stepped up 34 DraftKings points in just over 24 minutes. He will be chalk at 3,400, but I do believe Boucher is a cash game staple. I also love Derek Favors in cash tonight at 4,700. You want exposure to this Rockets-Pelicans game in bunches. The total in this game is right around 245. Favors posted a double-double, 10 points, 10 boards with 3 assists and 2 steals in his last game. And these are two teams that are playing in top 4 in pace in the NBA. So I love favors. And then one GPP play that I like a little bit tonight is Mike Conley for the Jazz. He's only 6,200. He's finally started to get himself in a rhythm in Quinn Snyder's system, averaging more than 35 DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5 games. And Jazz have a nice implied high total against the Warriors because they don't really like to defend. So I believe Mike Conley at 6,200. Everyone's going to want to spend up at point guard tonight, but I think maybe you can find some serious discounts with Mike Conley for Utah.
Oh, it's a matchup of lefty point guards. I'm into it. Mike Conley against D'Angelo Russell. All right, before we let you guys go, we need your slate-approved pick for tonight's slate, your absolute lock for this 6-game slate. Nick, you first.
I'm locking up Jason Tatum, 7,500. I know we talked about some of those other Celtics guys, Jaylen Brown, who could step up, but I think Tatum is the guy who could really end up benefiting most from Gordon Hayward's absence. Already off to a nice start. Now you're taking 31 minutes, 14 shots per game, 23% usage rate away from that Celtics lineup. Some of it's going to go to those bench guys we talked about, but I think the first option for Brad Stevens is Jason Tatum stepping up and just shouldering more of the offensive workload.
Ben, slate approved.
Slate-approved pick is Brandon Ingram. His usage rate without Lonzo Ball on the court climbs up to 31%. I just think he's in an absolute matchup dream spot, and frankly, I'm not making a cash lineup without him tonight.
And Ryan.
My lock is Pascal Siakam. You guys mentioned both. Noah Ibaka tonight. He's playing a ton of minutes. Nick Nurse is riding him like a workhorse. I think he played 39 minutes Friday, 42 the other night. Tonight, Pascal.
Gents, thank you very much. Enjoy the hoops tonight. We will stay on the hardwood when we return. College hoops season now 2 weeks old. We're going to discuss some spreads after Pat Mayo and company weigh in on Seattle, San Fran. It's a good one on Monday Night Football.
Hello, everybody. If you missed the Pat Mayo experience, like it is live at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time every single Sunday, I don't know what's wrong with you. You got to start tuning into that. But hey, we're now on the sweat, and we're talking about some low-owned plays, maybe some cheap plays for your DraftKings lineup in Week 9. Like the world knows, obviously, you use Jalen Samuels this week. He's probably he could be owned in 50% of rosters. So if you're playing more than one lineup, just use him in all of your lineups. He's essentially a free square. If he busts, he busts. But if he goes off, you're going to lose this week if you don't have him. The only other one, pay down running back that you could potentially go on to, or maybe even use both of them, is Mark Walton at $4,500. You use those two guys together, then you can basically pay for whoever else you want on the slate. Christian McCaffrey's $10,000, not a problem if you use one or both of those guys. Walton projects out, around a little bit less than Jalen Samuels. He's $500 more expensive, but no one is going to use him because everyone is using Jalen Samuels. So that is something to watch out for. But lock in Jalen Samuels, be on your way. At defense, it's very clear that if you do want to pay down for the Skins defense at $1,800, then you're going against Josh Allen. Josh Allen loves getting sacked. He loves turning the ball over even when the Bills win. So if that's where you want to save your money, that's not a bad place to do it. But if you use Samuels and the Redskins defense, that's probably going to be a lot of a common build this week. So just pay attention to that. You might have to pivot off somewhere else. I got a list of pivot wide receivers that you can go to. At the tight end position, it does seem like Jonnu Smith at $3,800, $37, $38, whatever he is. High 3,000s is where you want to go at tight end if you're going to pay down. There is the potential someone like Noah Fant with Jeff Heuerman out could end up in a nice situation against the Browns because they're going to lock down everything else on that offense. But that's really the two pay down situations that you want to go with. Maybe try to pay up at tight end because the options are not bountiful. If Chris Herndon is officially active against the Dolphins, maybe you can go to Ryan Griffin. He's cheap. No one's going to use him. And he has developed into a red zone presence. Just the tight ends in general on the Jets when Sam Darnold is under center have been a viable option. It's not a high volume option, but a high upside option because of the touchdown potential. At quarterback, everyone's paying up for Matt Stafford. I get it, but I'd rather pay down a little bit and go with Jameis. If you really want to take a shot, that Jets and Dolphins game.
College basketball season is well underway, heading into week 2. We are happy to have Rob Snyder joining us. He's NBC Sports Boston's bracket guru. Not quite bracket season yet, Rob, but are you enjoying the early season action so far?
I am. You're right. It's not bracket season, but that doesn't mean I'm not loving college basketball so far. I do think the talent's a little bit lower than normal years, but still fascinating to watch.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on with us and really being true to your word when it comes to the coverage of it. So you're here for high or low. Are these game spreads we're about to tell you about too high or too low? So we'll have a look now at what we're dealing with here as far as some of these games. First one I'm looking at on this 4-game college basketball slate, DePaul, the Blue Demons, are visiting Iowa. Hawkeyes are losing 9 points here. Spread too high or too low?
I can't believe I'm going to say this because for as long as I can remember watching basketball, DePaul basketball has been not pretty at all, but this is too high. Honestly, DePaul's lost some talent in Max Strus and Eli Kane, but they are building a program there. And Dave Leto, who was suspended for the first 3 games of the season, their head coach, returns tonight. I think that gives them a little bit of a boost. And honestly, I really don't believe in Iowa's talent. Jordan Bohannon's not 100%. He's coming off the bench. There are trends for both these teams that show that in November games that Iowa would be the team that covers. But I don't think there's a big enough sample size this year. I kind of like DePaul here. And the Big Ten, if there's anything that's been the most disappointing in college basketball this year, it's the Big Ten. So I kind of like DePaul. I think this is too high.
Okay, let's move on to Texas A&M Corpus Christi taking on Vanderbilt. Vandy is minus 16.5. Too high or too low?
This is too low and a barn burner here, I know. There's a trend here early season of Power 5 teams covering spreads, big spreads against really bad teams. Corpus Christi falls into that really bad category. They are a terrible offensive team. Vandy's in a weird year because they have a new coach, and they only have 10 scholarship players, 4 of which are freshmen, but they do have the 2 best players on the floor by far in Neesmith and Lee. They should cover easily. This one is too low. Do not look for Corpus Christi to cover.
We're going to stay in the SEC. Texas A&M is minus 15 against Louisiana Monroe. Doing some homework. They were picked in the middle of their conference preseason poll. That's all I can offer. Too high or too low?
Yeah, as far as Monroe goes, there's not a ton more I can offer, but I like Buzz Williams as a head coach. I'm not sold on Texas A&M this year in the SEC, but Buzz Williams is a great coach. And Louisiana Monroe, the other thing I can add for you is they've lost 5 of their top 6 scorers from a year ago.
Oof.
They also played, this is the big one, they played 2 days ago. They went to overtime against Alcorn State, and their backcourt played 42 minutes each.
Oof.
So I do not think they'll have the legs here. Texas A&M should be able to handle this easily. This is too low.
All right, we got a ranked team to talk about now. Winthrop, not the ranked team. They are picked 3rd in the Big South, however, and they play against number 18 St. Mary's. Ironically, those Gales are minus 18 against the Eagles. Spread too high or too low?
Yeah, again, too low, and you can blame Winthrop's schedule makers, which is probably just the university. But Winthrop played yesterday against Fresno State. They lost. They played a lot of minutes. This comes after they played at Hartford to start the season, so they've traveled across the country, and now they're playing back-to-back games. St. Mary's started the season with a test. They played Wisconsin, so now they get a little bit of a cupcake. St. Mary's in the past has struggled a little bit against teams more athletic than them. Winthrop is not more athletic than them. St. Mary's can score in a variety of ways. They return a ton of talent. I do like the Gales, and I do think that this spread is too low.
Okay, hey, it's a money game, man. That's how this stuff works, right? For Winthrop.
Sorry, what's that?
I said it's a money game for Winthrop. They've got to fill out the schedule somehow.
They do, but maybe a day off here and there.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fair.
This is brutal that they travel from Hartford across the country, Fresno, and now St. Mary's. It's just it's a spot. It's a spot to lose, honestly.
Rob, we appreciate the time. You are on Twitter at Robbie Buckets. I appreciate your last tweet. Northwestern should be embarrassed. Merrimack
They should, and that's Big
Northwestern.
Ten, man. Iowa about to be embarrassed tonight too.
Look at that. Hot take to close it out. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That'll do it
Yeah.
for basketball. Appreciate it. We'll have you on again soon, I bet. Let's talk some hockey. We will do so when we come back.
Hey, I'm Taryn Azak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Knicks offseason didn't go as planned, and to no one's surprise, it's translating into the season as they are 2-8. That is the worst record in the NBA. They suffered a 21-point loss to the Cavs on Sunday, marking an early season low for New York. President Steve Mills expressed his frustration to the media, saying, "We're not happy with where we are. This is not where we expected to be at this point, 10 games in." The Knicks have now had 3 losses by at least 20 points in the last 4 games. They missed out on top free agents and now have an overall inconsistent young team. Even the team's main bright spot, rookie RJ Barrett, has started to struggle. The third overall pick is averaging over 15 points per game, but has been stuck in a shooting slump, going 9 for 32 over his last 3 games. Mills also said, obviously, Scott Perry and I are not happy right now, so there might be a reckoning if the team doesn't get on track. The Knicks have done worse than expected, and it seems up in the air if they can figure out how to turn this messy season around.
Well, look who we brought back to DraftKings. DK Nation editor Ben Zwyman is here to discuss this busy 2-game National Hockey League slate. I mean, I guess we had to give you one of the biggest slates of the week, just 2 games. I hope that's not overwhelming you, Ben. How are you?
I'm a little overwhelmed, to be honest. I was expecting. Where's Jesse and Emerson? What are you doing here?
Well, I got the phone call, and here I am.
I'm glad to see you, man.
Good to see you, too. All right, let's discuss stuff for the people. NHL opening face-off. Ben's going to choose between top options at each position for this slate, so we'll begin at center. Again, folks, just 2 games, not a lot of options here. Sebastian Aho of the Hurricanes is your highest-priced center, with a pair of Capitals centers behind him. Nicholas Backstrom, $7,000, and then Evgeny Kuznetsov is $6,700 right behind him. All right, Zwyman, who is a better option on tonight's slate?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect a lot of the ownership to go towards Aho and Backstrom, so I think in that case, Kuznetsov is probably the play in tournaments. But again, it's tough. It's a tough call. I think the Senators aren't getting a lot of credit on the road. They have actually been playing a lot better lately. They're 5-4-0 in their last 9 games. They've only allowed 24 goals, which is actually pretty good for them. So I think they're sort of going underlooked. So I'm not crazy about Aho. As far as Kuznetsov, he's playing with Tom Wilson, who's been really hot in this recent stretch, and I think the Capitals are in a way better spot against the Coyotes at home. So I think I would lean on Backstrom or Kuznetsov. I'll take the savings with Kuznetsov, though.
All right, let's go to Wing, giving you a tough one here. Stats versus your own heart and soul, Mr. Zwyman. Tom Wilson has been producing for the Caps double-digit DraftKings point games in each of his last 4. He'll cost you just $5,500 against Arizona. On the other side of that matchup, and just $200 more, the man, the myth, the legend, Phil Kessel. Who you got?
Yeah, you know how I feel about Phil. I love him. And Jesus, like if there's Tom Wilson, I won't even get into it with Tom Wilson, but it's hard to play Kessel right now. He really isn't producing that much offensively. Most of the time when he was on the Penguins, he was putting up points. You know, he was hitting that 3+ point bonus, which is what you're looking for, but his shot volume really isn't there. He's hovering around 3 to 4 shots per game, which really isn't getting it done because you want to get to that 5+ bonus. So yeah, I mean, Tom Wilson's way too hot right now, and I think the matchup for the Capitals at home against the Coyotes is pretty good. Wilson has 4 goals over his last 4 games, 4 assists in that stretch also, so he's putting up points. So yeah, I'll take Tom Wilson, and you're getting savings. So yeah, I like stacking that Capitals second line. I don't know how much I would look at the Coyotes. Again, it's a 2-game slate though, so if the Coyotes do pop and Kessel does pop, then like that's what's going to win you a GPP. But I'd lean Tom Wilson.
So feel free to elaborate on your answers, man. We got 2 games to work with here, and you're by yourself. So the floor is yours, okay?
I gotta really get into it. We're going really deep on the 2-game slate.
I'm just letting you know. If you got a point to make, feel free to make it, okay? Jeez, it's like you've done this before. Let's go to defense. If you like to pay up for defense, you have 3 solid options tonight. Washington's John Carlson is available, $7,800. Dougie Hamilton is $6,900 for Carolina. Or you can get Ottawa's Thomas Chabot, $6,000. Are you paying for any of these guys?
Yeah, the price on Carlson is nuts, right? I can't remember the last time we saw a defenseman this high priced. But his production kind of backs it up, right? He's got double-digit fantasy points in 15 of the 18 games this season. He's got a really high ceiling with that blocks plus shots volume because you're potentially hitting both of those bonuses plus the points bonus because he's really been racking up points. He's the leading contender for the Norris Trophy at this point, I think, and the Capitals are arguably the hottest hockey team on the planet right now. So yeah, it's hard to argue not paying up for Carlson. Dougie Hamilton's priced up a little bit. He's been producing a lot, but not putting up too many points. And like I said, the Senators they've been playing better hockey. We need to give them a little bit more credit. So I think the price on Hamilton, not so great. If anything, Shabbat stands out. The Senators just beat the Hurricanes 4-1 at home. They're going on the road, but I don't know how much that home ice advantage plays for the Canes. Shabbat's really not putting up too many points, but he's a guy that's going to skate a lot of ice time. He's going to skate around 24, 25 minutes per game. He's going to skate on the power play. So, yeah, I think if the Senators can get something going on the power play and score a couple of goals, then Shabbat's a decent play just in terms of tournaments. His ownership's going to be very low. I think a lot of the ownership will go to Carlson, so he's more of your cash game play. But when's the last time you were playing a defenseman that's 7,800 in cash games? It's very odd. But yeah, I mean, if you're stacking the Capitals, I think Carlson is a staple there. Maybe I'm fading Dougie Hamilton because I'm not crazy about the Hurricanes too much. But if you're playing a lot of lineups, you got to distribute pretty evenly, I would say, on a 2-game slate. So yeah, I mean, Shabbat's your GPP guy, Carlson's your cash guy.
And Shabbat, last time he was priced, this is the lowest he's been priced since October 27th against San Jose. That was 6,600. All right, let's go to the goal now. In the goal, we've got 2 games. That means 4 netminders. Simply here, who do you like?
Again, Senators. I think Anders Nielsen's in a good spot. He's slated to start for Ottawa. He's actually been pretty good over his last 3 starts. He hasn't allowed more than 2 goals. He's seeing a lot of shots. He's got at least 32 saves in 2 of those 3 games. He's picked up a win in each of those. He's sort of supplanting Craig Anderson as the top goalie for the Senators, and rightfully so. He's been playing that way. And, like, again, you're going to see a lot of the ownership go in terms of the favorites in the Hurricanes and the Capitals. That's Ilya Samsonov for the Capitals and Peter Mrazek for the Hurricanes. So if you want to differentiate a bit and you like the Senators in tournaments, I think you have to go with Anders Nielsen. And you can also justify playing Antti Ranta. The price is low. Again, it's only 2 games, so you sort of have to consider all your options. I think Nielsen, though, if the Hurricanes do come out and outplay the Senators a little bit, Nielsen will at least see a decent amount of shots. So as long as the Senators can sort of hang in that game, I think Nielsen has a pretty good shot at hitting that saves bonus and potentially getting the win. So he'll be at low ownership. He'll save you some salary, which I think is key, because if you're going to play the Capitals stack, either the first or the second line with Carlson, you're going to have to pay a lot. So you pretty much can't pay for Samsonov with that Capitals stack, and really you need to hit a lot of value plays is what I'm trying to say. So Nielsen sort of gives you a little bit more flexibility, so you can pay up for the Capitals and still have some more salary cap to sort of fit decent players into that lineup. So yeah, I think Nielsen's the best play on this slate.
All right, Zwyman, again, you remember how this works. We need your slate-approved pick for this 2-game NHL slate before you go.
All right, I'm going a little off the grain. I could make it easy, Capitals, Hurricanes, but Senators, I think J.G. Peugeot has been playing great hockey. He's got 5 goals over his past 4 games. That's a 4-game goal streak. He's seeing a ton of ice time. He's very cheap still, 5,500. He's playing on that second line for the Senators that's actually clicked with Connor Brown and Nicholas Paul. Those guys you can stack pretty easily and fit in a lot of those Capitals guys if that's what you're trying to do. So, again, if you're looking for value, I think the Senators are a great place to look. You can look on their blue line. You can look at center. So, yeah, I like Peugeot. I think he could potentially extend this goal streak. He scored against the Hurricanes in the last game, so why not do it again?
Ben Zwyman of DK Nation, you're a traitor, but it's good to see you. And hey, study up. There's a 9-game slate tomorrow. You might get a call back from the folks at DraftKings.
I think I'm strictly Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But we'll see. They're giving me all the short slates, man. You know, those are tougher.
You're not working enough. All right.
Anyway. Oh, totally.
Okay. Bye-bye, Ben. Good to see you.
See you, buddy.
Yeah, see you too. NFL Showdown picks are coming your way with kickoff approaching. The Showtime sports documentary film, Pariah, The Lives and Deaths of Sonny Liston, chronicles the tragic life and suspicious death of perhaps the most vilified and misunderstood boxer of all time, Sonny Liston. Tune in Friday, November 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern on Showtime. Let's take a look.
If you're heavyweight champion, you die trying.
He was always involved in a criminal culture, whether by choice or necessity.
There were a lot of people who had an vested interest in shutting Sonny up. So many people wanted Sonny dead. Question is, who got to him first?
With tonight's game, the Seahawks are 6-point underdogs in San Francisco.
Yep.
Going up
Looks
against
like
the
no
undefeated
Kittle.
49ers. No Kittle.
Yep.
He's doubtful. No Robbie Gould either.
Yes.
Just something to think about.
And
Chase
that
McLaughlin.
Monday night game that we did see a while back when the 49ers just destroyed the Browns, they did have a ton of kicking issues in that game. They missed or botched or messed up like 2 or 3 field goals. They just dominated the rest of the game, so it wasn't even a storyline.
The over-under is 47.5, and you know the bad thing about, not bad, but when you get these games with 2 very good teams, you can make the argument anywhere, right? You can make the argument for the over, obviously. You can certainly make the argument for the under, at least with San Francisco's defense. My leaning here is Seahawks cover. I just don't know if they outright win. What are your thoughts, Bukes, on this game?
I like the Seahawks to win. I said this early in the week, too.
Plus 210 on the money line.
Yep. I just think you're getting incredible value on the Seahawks here against a
and
very
the likely
good,
MVP.
A very good 49ers team. Let's not disregard how good this team has been. We had our doubts in the beginning of the season. Was the schedule easy? They've gone and showed up every single week.
Yeah.
What I do like about it is that, so while the 49ers have one of the best pass rushes in the game, you're getting one of the best quarterbacks in that situation.
Right.
When Russell Wilson is under pressure, he has one of the best QBR ratings in the league. So it's not like he can't handle something like that. If the Seahawks get up to an early lead, kind of like what you were saying, they will slow this game down. And they will run the ball, prevent the 49ers offense from getting onto the field. And, we always joke about kickers, but that's a big part. Gould has been basically automatic for them, and now they don't have that. So I think there's just a lot of checkbox. The Seahawks check a lot of things off for me in this game. As underdogs, they're 2-0 against the spread so far this season. I just think there's a lot to like about this, and I haven't even brought up no George Kittle.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to like about the Seahawks in this game.
2 things on that. Number one, Seattle also is susceptible to letting up a lot of points to the tight end position, so or fantasy points, but letting up a lot of production to tight ends in general. So that is a spot that has kind of hurt them this season. So it's particularly big that Kittle's probably not going to be there. Number 2, do we know who's kicking for
San Francisco?
San Francisco?
Yeah, it's Chase McLaughlin. He's a rookie. He was with the Bills in preseason. That's why I know he was perfect.
okay.
He was perfect in preseason.
Okay.
Looked really good, and as someone who just watched a kicker miss 2 field goals and a 3-point loss.
Was he on the practice squad or something?
No, he got signed off as someone else's practice squad. They released him before the season. He did spend time somewhere else.
I mean, it sounds like this kid can kick. Why are the... It just makes me question why the Patriots are flip-flopping around with Mike Nugent and what's his name, Folk
or whatever it is.
If there's young, accurate kickers out there, but that's a different story. I just assumed because of what we've seen from kickers this season, how bad they are, and teams scraping up trash, that they would be signing some bum off the street. It sounds like
he was a free agent, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like this kid's actually legit.
Really
so
gotten
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he kicked for the Chargers for a little bit, too.
Oh,
in the
okay.
game. He was 6 of 9 on field attempts in that and made all 7 of his extra points. So, yeah, you go with the young leg.
Yeah, all right.
Then he got released when Bagley was healthy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I do think the kicker thing, it could be big. This is a really hard game.
I think this sets up for Russell Wilson's, MVP moment.
Yep.
Right?
See,
we saw Joe Burrow do that, in college.
I agree. I want to take the points with the Seahawks here.
6.
It's just that every time I go against the 49ers, they get me. Every time.
Yeah.
That said, this is definitely their stiffest test, and they're playing against a real team, a real quarterback, a real coach, which not every team has. You see the Browns come in there on Monday night, and that's when we still thought they were a talented upcoming team, and you get Freddie Kitchend, and Pete Carroll is not at least going to do something that dumb to shoot himself in the foot.
Monday night during the football season means we conclude our program discussing Monday Night Football. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler are back. Guys, just want to let you know Josh Gordon is active for tonight on the Seattle side, and then on the San Francisco side, George Kittle is officially inactive. So let's do NFL Showdown with those things in mind. These guys are going to reveal their top picks for tonight's Seahawks 49ers Showdown on DraftKings. Reed, let's go to you first. How about a captain pick, please?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a nice game here. I think both of us, Jeff and I, like the prospects out here. But Matt Breida is going to be my captain's pick, and Tevin Coleman is the RB1 in that backfield. Excuse me. But when you look at getting both of these quarterbacks in and some of the higher price guys that we'll talk about, Matt Breida provides you that salary relief at $9,300 up top at the captain's spot. And we've seen in matchups where he does get lesser of the snap count, lesser of the carries, where he produces more. Especially last week, he got a little bit more of the snap count, and he produced more than Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman's a more explosive back. He's a red zone guy, and he's going to have a good game, but I want to get both of these quarterbacks into my lineup. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring, so I like the over, so give me Matt Breida.
Jeff, you're captain.
Reed, just taunting me from the get-go by choosing Matt Breida over Tevin Coleman.
Of course.
What a shame. I would never do that. But look, I like the upside of Matt Breida. It's a decent GPP pick. I'm going to go Emmanuel Sanders, though. This might be a little bit chalky, but we talked about the matchup at the start of the show. It's a really good one. I mean, especially with no George Kittle out there. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders, Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously on the same page right from the get-go. And now you're going to have a game where he's potentially, his projection is probably has him between 8 and 10 targets at minimum with no George Kittle. So it saves you a little bit of money. He's still expensive, but it does allow you pretty easily to fit in a quarterback and another high-priced player. I like going Emmanuel Sanders here. I do feel like San Francisco's going to have to do something through the air here because I think Seattle's rush defense has been improving a bit. And I think Emmanuel Sanders is going to have a big game.
Yeah, so next on the checklist of questions I have to ask you guys, a good complement play to go with your captain. So, Jeff, I would presume that's Garoppolo, right, with Sanders?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to go. Obviously, you probably, if you really like Sanders, just play the stack. But I also like going with Chris Carson if you're going to play Emmanuel Sanders. It's, again, you just think about how is the game going to go. If you think Chris Carson and Seattle can get going a little bit on the ground, that just means that it's probably going to put San Francisco behind the 8 ball a little bit more, lead to a little bit more passing, a few more targets for Sanders. So I kind of like playing Chris Carson and then Sanders on the other side.
How about you, Reed? A compliment to Matt Breida, your captain pick.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the MVP candidates is Russell Wilson. When you look at to what Jeff was just saying, how this game is going to go, either way this game goes, if Seattle is up and we think that Seattle can win this game, they give up a ton of points in the second half, top 10 in terms of points given up. And so if San Francisco can come back, and if we think Jimmy Garoppolo and Emmanuel Sanders are going to have big games, I also think Russell Wilson is going to have that big game. Like, this is what MVPs do, right? They have big games against these good teams in prime time, and that's Russell Wilson. Even if we do think Chris Carson is going to be a factor in this game, we also think that he's going to be able to catch passes out of the backfield. I really like Russell Wilson in this game. I think it's going to be an over. He's a good compliment, especially if you want to keep this game high. Or if you think that this is going to go over, getting both of these quarterbacks in your lineup is huge. So give me Russ.
Highest priced player at $11,400. How about a value play, Reed? Back to you, a value play for tonight's showdown.
Yeah, it's going to be Ross Dwelly at $2,000. Kittle is out, and I know there's some places, and Jeff's going to mention it, mention one guy that is a decent value play, but Ross Dwelly, $2,000, he's going to be the backup there. He should get the lion's share of the snaps, doesn't really have a lot of confidence, so he has a dart throw. He saw 4 targets, 1 in the red zone last week. Give me Dwelly.
Jeff?
Dwelly's definitely in play. He was a guy who actually performed pretty well in the preseason, too. Sorry, I'm just trying to open up some on my screen here. But I like going to Kyle Juszczyk, too. Juszczyk, who's coming back from injury. He's been a focal point of the Kyle Shanahan offense, though. Shanahan likes to get that fullback, a mobile fullback out into the flats. So I really feel like you could easily see like 3 to 5 targets here, end up with 40 yards. If he gets into the end zone at $600, he's a massive play, but Dwelly's definitely in play too. I think either one of those guys is going to be very key on the slate, just because they're so cheap. It allows you to fit in so many other studs.
All right, lightning round. Jeff, get all your tabs open. Is it worth playing either a defense or a kicker? That would be Jason Myers of Seattle and Chase McLaughlin, not Robbie Gould for the Niners. Gould's doubtful with the quad. Jeff, tabs open. Go ahead.
I would fade the kickers. I mean, Myers, obviously, we saw he sucked last week. The 49ers going with a backup. I like the Seattle D. I like pairing the Seattle D. It's going to be low-owned and pair him with Chris Carson.
How about you, Reed?
Yeah, I don't mind Chase McLaughlin out in San Francisco. I think he's a decent play if you need some salary relief. And Seattle D is going to be another good play as well.
Absolute fades. Reed, who are you not touching?
DK Metcalf. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for him. He had that big game, but I'm going to fade DK.
Jeff, quick.
Yeah, that was my fade too. I guess since we're both fading him, he's going to go for like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I just think he's overpriced in this matchup. And Josh Gordon's back.
All right, Jeff, we'll go to you first. I need a score prediction. Who's winning this ball game?
23-24, Seattle.
And Reed.
I got the exact opposite for San Francisco.
Oh, it's going to be good. I love it. Undefeated San Francisco against Seattle. Thanks for tuning into The Sweat. Hope all that helped you, folks. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern, we're right back here for more breakdown. Enjoy the sports, folks.